All right, so let's talk about the economy because um, there's a lot of things that have been going on for a while now. But as we have been thinking about this for a while, we're wondering, right? I brought this issue up here in the podcast saying, how much longer can we go adding to the debt before it collapses on us? And, a lot of people think that we can go beyond $100 trillion on the national debt, not the unfunded liabilities. Other people think that it could happen at any minute. And with what we're seeing with the price inflation, with the CPI, it really kind of points towards that. All right. And that's what I want to focus on this podcast, or at least in this particular, that's going to be divided, because really what I want to talk about is the economy, the shortages, and the weather, because all of those three things are interconnected. And if you can follow along and put all this together, you can see the bigger picture, and you're going to see where it's going to take you to, because there's some things that even though we're experiencing some of it now, the real effects of it will be on later. That's the reason why you have to make sure that you're prepared right now and you put everything in place, so when those things actually do happen, all right, you're better off from that point on. And one of the things that I've always told you here, and that I wrote in the book, is that preparedness can no longer be the one event that you're waiting for to happen. It unfolds for several weeks or months, and then things go back to normal. History proves that that's not what happens, at least not with the significant, real crap and hit the fan scenarios that we should all prepare for. Because, a natural disaster will happen. A tornado can come through your house, a hurricane or something like that can come through your house. It can destroy it, but that didn't mean that the entire country was affected. Now, with this that I'm going to be talking about today, it will affect not just you locally, but nationwide, and even beyond the United States, because these are issues that we're seeing globally. And once the dominoes start falling, then when they all come together, they're going to create this big problem for everyone. So that is the reason why you have to take advantage of each day that you have to prepare. And people break down into two groups: people who have a lot of money, or some money to where they can use preparedness and not really affect their pocketbook, and people who don't have much money and they have to take the baby steps. If you're in the group of people who have enough money to where you can prepare on a regular basis without really affecting you very much, then you need to stop procrastinating. You need to see what you have lacking and get it now, because we don't know how much longer it's going to be before the supply chain problems get a lot bigger, or everything gets so expensive that it becomes a lot more difficult to get. And for the people who do not have much money and you're taking those baby steps, I encourage you to continue to take those baby steps, because you can only prepare as so much as you can, and until the day something happens. Beyond that, you have to adjust your way of life and live beyond that. So let's look at what we need. Let's see what we're lacking, and from that moment on, let's move on to something that we need. Don't just focus on the one thing. Don't just focus on stocking food if you don't have any seeds, if you don't have any livestock. Don't focus on stocking up bottles of water if you don't have a rain catchment system, or you don't have a river going through, or a creek, a river, whatever, body of water running through your property. There's different things that you can do, different steps that you can take. And hopefully we have a lot more time before these issues that I'm going to be talking about, fully manifest. And, that way you have a lot more time to prepare. But just know that they're coming, and as I'm going to be proving them to you, they're just around the corner. Now, I do want to mention, and I do want to make it clear, I'm not trying to be an alarmist or anything like that, because the Fed, the White House, the powers that be, they're going to prolong the collapse of the dollar and everything else as much as they can, because they have proven to do it. There are theories out there that say that they're trying their best to destroy us or whatever. But what they have been doing, and as I've been showing it to you here, is that they're trying to prolong it as much as they can. Because as you know, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, they told the other countries, the other central banks, they told them, print as much money as you can, because otherwise all this is going to collapse. And although printing more money will make the collapse even worse, they just, they're trying to prolong it as much as they can. Maybe they don't have all the things that they need ready for them, and they're trying to prolong that, or maybe they just don't want the system to fall apart. We don't know. The point is that we're getting time because they're creating time for themselves. So we have to take advantage of that right now. All right. So the money printing right now, supposedly, right? The what you would call it, the official number for the inflation that we have, or actually the debt that we have here in the country, is supposed to be $28.3 trillion. But that does not include the stimulus package that was passed, when was it? I think February, the almost $2 trillion, and then the one in December that was also $2.4 trillion, I think, if I'm not mistaken. My point is that those are not added to it. I don't know where they go. I don't understand why they're not being added to it, but the debt should really be about $33 trillion. So how much longer can it go? No idea. Maybe they can go to 100 trillion, 200 trillion, maybe a quadrillion. But the point is that it's going to collapse one day, and it looks like the foundation is crumbling right now. So what the Fed does is that they print all this money, right? They create it out of thin air, and then they give it to the U.S. government through treasuries, which is what this article is going to describe. Now, pay close attention, because there's another detail here in this article that I had not really thought about until I read it. And then, it kind of clicked on me, and I'm going to share this with you in just a second. So the article comes from the economicprism.com, and the title says, "The Ugly Truth About Printing Press Money. Weeping and gnashing of teeth shall come. We don't know when exactly, but we do know a certain catastrophe is approaching. In fact, we can see it on the horizon. Does anyone in Washington give a rip the nation's beyond broke? Does anybody in Congress care that outright money printing is what's financing their stimulus bills? Does House Financial Service Committee Chair Maxine Waters think it's all a real hoot? The majority of the electorate have voted for generous gifts from the public treasury. They want free education, free food, free phones, free transportation, and free drugs. They want debt forgiveness. Most of all, they want free money. The Federal Reserve adds a notation to its balance sheet, now over $7.7 trillion, and the credit magically appears from thin air. The Fed then loans the freshly minted credit to the Treasury through the purchase of Treasury notes. The Treasury then directs this printing press money into Washington's various spending programs. This inflation of the money supply is inflation in its true sense, and it comes with destructive consequences. After asset prices inflation and wild gambling and speculation comes consumer price inflation, the real wealth destroyer. This is the ugly truth about printing press money. The ugly truth Fed Chair Powell and Treasury Secretary Yellen will never share as they champion their virtues of their policies of mass inflation. Weeping and gnashing of teeth shall come. All right, so the very important thing that I got from this article when I first read it was the Fed's balance sheet. That is at $7.7 trillion. And when I looked it up and did a little research, what I found out is that the Fed is the central bank of the United States, right? Almost every country has a central bank to its name. And they're the ones that create the money. They lend it to the government, and then they're supposed to use that to pay the bills and to create more revenues to pay it back. But what has happened here is that the Fed has been printing all this money for a very long time. Now, $7.7 trillion, it's a lot of money. But compared to the 28 or technically $33 trillion balance sheet that the United States has, or, the debt, there's a big difference between the two. Now, this is what kind of dawned on me when I was thinking about this. What if our national debt doesn't matter as much as the Fed's balance sheet? Because if the balance sheet of the Fed is being increased according to how much money we need to borrow from them to spend, then the real crisis will come from the Fed Reserve, because then it'll come to a point where they cannot just simply print money. Maybe they have gold that they can back up their balance sheet. Maybe they don't. But the point is that it's going to get to one point where they're going to eventually say, we cannot do this anymore. You're going to have to pay us back. And then the U.S. government is going to be forced to pay back somehow, not with printed money. It's going to have to be real assets. So when the U.S. government is forced to come to that point and they say, okay, we have to, we have to give something to the Fed, Otherwise, we're going to default. So what are the first things that we're going to cut? And of course, every single time it's going to be the people who are affected. It's going to be the people who are dependent on the government who are going to be affected. Okay, so this right here is the reason why I really do believe that we have to come in and step up as community leaders, because we know how preparedness is. We know what it is. We're prepared for something like this to happen. And when the time comes, people are going to be looking for help. They're going to be looking for food. They're going to be looking for water. They're going to be looking for housing, for other things that they are dependent on the government on. What we can provide is help for them to help themselves. So, the one thing that has always been part of the prepper community is selfishness, where people, in podcasts and other people that you've seen on the internet, they say, I prepare, you didn't go away. If you try to come to me for help, and I'm going to turn you away because you didn't prepare, and if you insist, I'm going to shoot you in the face. Well, that is exactly the thing that I want to get rid of in this community of preppers, because we have enough time. We are seeing what's happening in the news. We're getting the analysis of what's happening. We have the foresight, and we are not blinded to really be so dependent on the supply chain and the grid, right? So if we're taking the proper steps, with a real foundation to where we're going to be okay, we're going to have a self-sustained system where we're going to have abundance, we're going to be able to help other people through churches and organizations and stuff like that, then we turn those people from being part of the problem to actually being part of the solution. Because now they don't have to worry so much about where the next meal is coming from. They don't have to worry about so much about what they're going to feed their kids. They're going to be able to focus on other social issues that we're going to have in those days, and we can work together to make it better. That is the reason why I really do believe we have to come together as a community of preppers, unify, and become leaders in our community.
The Man-Made Survival Show.